"Elena," he said, her name a prayer on his lips. She froze, staring at the man she'd spent 3 years trying to forget. The man who had just appeared as her blind date. The restaurant around them faded to a blur as those familiar cobalt blue eyes, the same eyes she saw in her son's face every morning, locked with hers. "I saw you yesterday," he continued, his voice breaking, "in the park, with a little boy." His hand trembled as it gripped the mahogany cane beside him. "Why does that little boy have my eyes, Elena? Have you ever had your past crash into your present at the worst possible moment? When the person who shattered your heart suddenly reappears, demanding answers you never thought you'd have to give." For Elena, 3 years of carefully rebuilding her life crumbled in an instant when her billionaire ex, the man who abandoned her without a word, appeared as her blind date, asking about the son he never knew existed. But what if everything she believed about his disappearance was wrong? What if the truth was more heartbreaking than abandonment? And could a love once thought dead rise from the ashes stronger than before? Hey, my beautiful queens, how many times have we built walls around our hearts based on stories we've told ourselves? Stories that seemed so clear, so obvious, until they weren't. We've all been there, haven't we? Constructing entire narratives about why someone hurt us, why they left, why they changed. And sometimes, just when we think we've figured it all out, life humbles us with a truth we never saw coming. Today's story is about that moment when everything you thought you knew gets turned upside down. It's about the courage it takes to listen when every instinct tells you to run. Because sometimes, my sisters, the hardest truths to hear are the ones that heal us the most. And sometimes, true love doesn't just survive the storm. It emerges stronger, more beautiful, and more resilient than we ever thought possible. The autumn sun cast long shadows across Elena Blackwood's office as she stared at the invitation on her desk. The elegant cream cardstock bore only a time, an address, and a promise. A chance to begin again. Madeline, her best friend since college, had arranged everything. The reservation at Celestial, Chicago's most exclusive rooftop restaurant, the mystery date, even the babysitter for Leo. "It's been 3 years, Elena," Madeline had insisted over lunch last week, her voice gentle but firm. "You can't keep living in the past. One dinner. That's all I'm asking." Elena traced her fingers over the embossed lettering. 3 years since Liam Westbrook had vanished from her life without explanation. 3 years of rebuilding herself from the shattered pieces he'd left behind. 3 years of raising their son alone. A son Liam didn't even know existed. The thought of Leo brought an involuntary smile to her face. At 3, he was all curious energy and mischievous grins, with eyes the exact shade of cobalt blue as his father's. Those eyes had been the first thing she'd noticed about Liam when they'd met at a charity auction 4 years ago. That and the quiet confidence with which he'd outbid everyone for a painting she'd been admiring. "You seem drawn to it," he'd said later, presenting her with the small landscape. "I thought it belonged with you." Elena pushed the memory away and slipped the invitation into her purse. Perhaps Madeline was right. Perhaps it was time to step out of the shadows of what might have been and into whatever future awaited her. What she couldn't possibly know was that fate had already set its wheels in motion the previous afternoon, when she'd taken Leo to Lincoln Park. She hadn't noticed the man sitting alone on a bench, leaning heavily on a mahogany cane, his breath catching as he watched a dark-haired woman and a small boy who had his eyes. The evening air held the first hint of October's chill as Elena stepped out of the taxi in front of Celestial. The restaurant occupied the top floor of the Archer building, its glass walls and retractable roof offering panoramic views of Chicago's glittering skyline. She smoothed the silk of her midnight blue dress, a color she'd once been told brought out the amber flecks in her brown eyes, and took a steadying breath. "Just dinner," she reminded herself. "Nothing more." The maitre d' greeted her with practiced warmth. "Ms. Blackwood, your party is already seated. Please, follow me." Elena trailed behind him through the dimly lit restaurant, past tables of Chicago's elite engaged in quiet conversation. Candles flickered in hurricane glasses, casting golden light across white tablecloths. The maitre d' led her to a secluded corner where the city spread out below like a carpet of stars. A man sat with his back to her, his broad shoulders outlined against the night sky. Something about the set of those shoulders sent a jolt of recognition through Elena, but she dismissed it as nerves. Until he turned. Time seemed to stop, the restaurant fading to a distant blur around them. Liam Westbrook, older, leaner, with threads of silver at his temples that hadn't been there 3 years ago, looked up at her with the eyes she saw every morning in her son's face. "Elena," he said, her name a prayer on his lips. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The maitre d' pulled out her chair, oblivious to the storm raging within her. Elena sank into it mechanically, her knees suddenly unable to support her. "What is this?" she finally managed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't know it would be you," Liam said quickly. "I swear. My assistant arranged it, a blind date. I never imagined." He trailed off, his eyes never leaving her face, drinking her in as if she might disappear. "You look beautiful." Elena's shock gave way to a slow-building fury. 3 years of silence, of wondering, of crying herself to sleep, and he sat there telling her she looked beautiful? "I'm leaving," she said, reaching for her purse. "Elena, please." Liam's voice cracked with emotion. "Just 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." Something in his tone made her pause, a vulnerability she'd never heard from him before. It was then that she noticed the mahogany cane resting against the table, its handle worn smooth, as if from constant use. 5 minutes, she agreed coldly. "Then I never want to see you again." Relief washed over his face, followed quickly by a shadow of pain. "Thank you." He shifted in his seat, a slight grimace betraying discomfort. "I saw you yesterday in Lincoln Park." Elena's heart stuttered. "What? You were by the duck pond, with a little boy." Liam's eyes glistened in the candlelight. "Why does that little boy have my eyes, Elena?" The directness of the question knocked the air from her lungs. Of all the scenarios she'd imagined for this moment, if it ever came, none had prepared her for the raw emotion in Liam's voice. "His name is Leo," she said finally. "He's 3 years old." Liam closed his eyes briefly, as if absorbing a physical blow. 3 years, he repeated. "Which means, I found out I was pregnant 2 weeks after you disappeared." The words came out sharper than she intended, edged with the pain of 1,000 sleepless nights. "The night you were supposed to propose." Liam's hand trembled as he reached for the water glass before him. "I had the ring in my pocket," he said quietly. "Platinum band, emerald-cut diamond. I was going to ask you at the lake house. But you never showed up," Elena finished for him. "No call, no note. You just vanished. Your assistant wouldn't tell me anything. Your family claimed they didn't know where you were." The hurt she'd buried for years bubbled to the surface. "Do you have any idea what that did to me? I thought you were dead, Liam. Then I saw your company announcing new developments, and I realized the truth. I just wasn't important enough. Your empire meant more." "No." The word came out with such force that heads turned at nearby tables. Liam lowered his voice. "That's not what happened, Elena. Not even close." "Then what did happen?" she demanded. "What possible explanation could there be for walking out on someone you claim to love?" Liam's gaze dropped to the cane beside him. "I never walked out on you," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I couldn't walk at all." Elena stared at him, uncomprehending. "The night I was supposed to meet you at the lake house, I was in a private helicopter," Liam continued. "There was a mechanical failure. We went down in a remote area." He spoke clinically, as if distancing himself from the memory. "The pilot didn't make it. I was trapped in the wreckage for hours before they found me." The anger that had sustained Elena began to waver. "You were in an accident?" Liam nodded. "My spine was damaged. The doctors weren't sure I'd ever walk again. I spent a year in hospitals, surgeries, complications, setbacks. I couldn't even speak for the first 3 months because of the breathing tube. But your company." "My brother stepped in as acting CEO. We kept it quiet, board members' orders. They were afraid the stock would plummet if word got out." A bitter smile crossed his face. Corporate interests protected at all costs. Elena's mind raced, trying to reconcile this new information with the narrative she'd constructed over 3 painful years. Why didn't you contact me? Once you could speak again, why didn't you call? Liam met her gaze directly. Because I was told my recovery was impossible. That I might spend the rest of my life in a wheelchair, dependent on round-the-clock care. His voice softened. I couldn't ask you to tie yourself to that, Elena. To give up the life you deserved for a man who might never stand beside you again. That wasn't your decision to make, Elena whispered, tears threatening. I know that now. Liam's hand moved across the table, stopping just short of touching hers. I spent the last 2 years at a rehabilitation center in Switzerland. Experimental treatments, physical therapy 8 hours a day. Learning to stand again. To walk. He gestured to the cane. I'm still not whole. I may never be. But I had to try. For myself. And because I never stopped hoping I might find you again. Sisters, have you ever discovered that what you thought was betrayal was something else entirely? Share your experience in the comments below. Elena sat in stunned silence, the restaurant around them continuing its elegant hum of conversation and clinking glasses. The truth of Liam's absence, so different from the abandonment she'd imagined, settled over her like a heavy blanket. When did you come back? She finally asked, her voice steadier than she felt. 2 weeks ago. I've been trying to find you ever since. A shadow crossed his face. Your apartment was sold. Your old firm said you'd moved on. No one would tell me where. I needed a fresh start, Elena said. After. She couldn't finish the sentence. After I broke your heart. Liam completed it for her. I'm so sorry, Elena. More than you can ever know. The waiter approached their table, but Liam waved him away with a subtle gesture. You have a son, he said, wonder and grief mingling in his voice. Our son, Leo. Elena nodded, reaching for her phone. She scrolled to a recent photo and passed it to Liam. Leo grinned from the screen, his dark hair tousled, blue eyes crinkled with laughter as he clutched his favorite stuffed dinosaur. Liam stared at the image, his composure finally breaking. A tear slid down his cheek. He's perfect, he whispered. He looks like my father. He has your stubbornness too, Elena said, a reluctant smile tugging at her lips. And your focus. When he sets his mind to something, there's no distracting him. I've missed everything, Liam said, his voice hollow. His birth, his first steps, his first words. He said book first, Elena offered softly. Then mama. He loves stories. Can't get enough of them. Liam handed the phone back, their fingers brushing. The contact, brief as it was, sent a current through Elena that she'd thought long extinguished. I understand if you hate me, Liam said. If you never want me in your life, in his life again. But please know that not a day went by that I didn't think of you. That I didn't regret my silence. Elena studied the man across from her. The Liam she'd known had been invincible, a force of nature in boardrooms and ballrooms alike. This Liam carried visible wounds, a vulnerability that transformed his once perfect features into something more human, more real. I don't hate you, she said finally. I tried to, for a long time, but I couldn't erase you completely. Not when I saw your eyes looking back at me every morning. Hope flickered across Liam's face. Could I meet him? Just once, if that's all you'll allow. I need to see him, Elena, to tell him who I am, even if he never calls me father. The raw longing in his voice pierced through the last of Elena's defenses. She thought of Leo asking about his daddy, of the half-truths she'd offered in response. He's away on a long trip, she'd say. Somewhere far away. He asks about you, she admitted. I never told him you were gone for good. I couldn't bear to. Liam's breath caught. What did you tell him? That his daddy had to go away, but that he loved him very much. Elena's voice wavered. I didn't want him to grow up feeling unwanted, even if I believed you'd chosen to leave. Thank you for that kindness, Liam said, especially when you had every reason to think the worst of me. The city lights blurred through Elena's tears. 3 years of certainty were crumbling around her, leaving her adrift in possibilities she'd long since abandoned. "Tomorrow," she said suddenly, "we're going to the Botanic Garden in the morning. The children's garden, around 10. If you want to meet him." "I'll be there," Liam promised, his voice fervent. "Even if I have to crawl." For years earlier, Elena Blackwood had not been looking for love when she attended the charity auction benefiting Chicago Children's Hospital. As the newest junior partner at her architectural firm, she was there to network, to make the right connections, not to fall for the most eligible bachelor in the city. She'd been studying a small landscape painting, a lakeside scene that reminded her of childhood summers in Michigan, when she sensed someone beside her. "Beautiful, isn't it?" a deep voice observed. Elena turned to find herself looking up into the most striking blue eyes she'd ever seen. Liam Westbrook, whose face regularly graced the business section of the Tribune, stood beside her in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, his attention seemingly divided between her and the painting. "It reminds me of somewhere I used to go," she replied, surprised by her own candor. "Then you should have it," he said simply. Before she could respond, the bidding began. Elena watched in astonishment as Liam calmly outbid everyone in the room, paying 10 times the painting's estimated value. Later, as the evening wound down, he approached her again, the wrapped painting in his hands. "You seemed drawn to it," he said, offering her the package. "I thought it belonged with you." Elena shook her head. "I can't accept that. You paid a fortune." "The money goes to the hospital," Liam shrugged. "And I'd rather see it with someone who appreciates it for more than its investment value." His smile transformed his face, softening the sharp angles of his jaw, crinkling the corners of those remarkable eyes. "Have dinner with me," he said. "Tell me about the place this reminds you of." Against her better judgment, Elena said yes. That first dinner led to another, and another. Liam Westbrook, it turned out, was not the cold corporate titan the media portrayed. With Elena, he was thoughtful, attentive, surprisingly funny. He listened when she spoke about her dreams of designing spaces that brought people together, that honored both function and beauty. "You see the world differently," he told her one night as they walked along the lakeshore. "Most people in my world only see opportunities, properties to develop, deals to close. You see possibilities, how to make lives better, spaces more meaningful." "Isn't that what you do too?" Elena asked. "Your affordable housing initiative is changing neighborhoods across the city." Liam looked surprised. "You've been researching me. Know thy enemy," she teased. "Isn't that what they say?" He laughed, then grew serious. "Is that what I am? Your enemy?" Elena stopped walking, turning to face him. "No," she said softly. "I'm just not sure what you are to me yet. And that's a little terrifying." Liam reached for her hand, his touch gentle but certain. "I'm whatever you want me to be, Elena, but I hope you'll give us a chance to find out." Their relationship deepened over the following months. Elena was introduced to Liam's world of wealth and privilege, charity galas, private jets, weekend escapes to his lake house in Wisconsin. She met his family, his imperious mother, Vivian, who assessed Elena with cool appraisal, his younger brother, Marcus, whose charm seemed practiced in comparison to Liam's natural warmth. "They'll warm up to you," Liam assured her after a particularly frosty dinner at the Westbrook family estate. "They're just protective." "Of you or the family name?" Elena asked, only half joking. Liam's expression turned serious. "I don't care what they think, Elena. Care about you. About us." Despite the differences in their backgrounds, they fit together in ways Elena had never experienced. Liam challenged her to think bigger about her career. She reminded him of the human impact behind his business decisions. When she was offered a position at a prestigious firm in New York, Liam was the one who encouraged her to negotiate for what she deserved. "Don't settle," he told her. "Not in your work, not in your life." By their 1-year anniversary, Elena had moved into Liam's penthouse overlooking the lake. She'd worried about losing herself in his world, but Liam seemed determined to build something equal, something that honored both their identities. I've never felt this way about anyone, he confessed one night as they lay tangled in sheets, the city lights twinkling beyond the windows. You make me want to be better, Elena, to build something that matters. 3 months later, he mentioned marriage for the first time. Not a proposal, but a question about their future. Have you thought about it? He asked as they walked through the Art Institute, his fingers laced with hers. About us? Long term? Elena's heart had skipped. Have you? His smile was answer enough. I want a life with you, Elena. All of it, the house, the family, growing old together. I just need to know if that's something you want too. Yes, she'd whispered, standing on tiptoe to kiss him. That's exactly what I want. The night everything changed began like any other. Liam called from his office, excitement in his voice. I've got a surprise for you, he said. Pack a bag for the weekend. I'll pick you up at 7, and we'll head to the lake house. Elena smiled, already suspecting what the surprise might be. They talked about marriage enough in recent weeks that she'd begun to wonder when he would ask. The lake house, their favorite retreat from the city, seemed the perfect setting. I'll be ready, she promised. But 7 o'clock came and went. Then 8, then 9. Elena's calls went straight to voicemail. By midnight, worry had eclipsed anticipation. This wasn't like Liam. He was unfailingly punctual, and he always called if plans changed. When morning came with still no word, Elena called his office, his brother, even his mother. No one had answers, or if they did, they weren't sharing them. Days stretched into weeks. Elena filed a missing persons report, but the police found nothing suspicious. Liam's passport hadn't been used. His credit cards showed no activity. It was as if he had simply vanished. Then, 3 weeks after his disappearance, Westbrook Developments announced a major new project in Detroit. The press release quoted Marcus Westbrook, acting as CEO in his brother's temporary absence. Elena's fear turned to betrayal. Liam wasn't missing, he was working. He had chosen his company over her, over their future together. The pain was almost unbearable. 2 weeks later, the final blow came, a positive pregnancy test. Elena was carrying Liam's child, a baby who would be born into a world where its father had walked away without a backward glance. With nowhere else to turn, Elena made the hardest decision of her life. She resigned from her position at the firm, sold most of her possessions, and moved to Minneapolis to start over. She would raise this child alone, away from the shadow of Liam Westbrook and the life they'd almost had. What Elena couldn't know was that at the exact moment she was staring at that positive test, Liam was lying in a hospital bed hundreds of miles away, fighting for his life. The night he was supposed to meet Elena, Liam had indeed been on his way to her, the ring secure in his pocket, his future bright with promise. The company helicopter was a last-minute decision. A traffic accident had closed the expressway, and he couldn't bear the thought of being late. Not tonight of all nights. We can be at the lake house in 40 minutes, sir, the pilot had assured him. They were 20 minutes into the flight when the engine failed. The pilot's last words, brace for impact, were followed by a sickening lurch, the scream of metal, and then darkness. Liam woke 3 days later in a rural hospital, his body broken, his voice silenced by a breathing tube. Through a haze of pain and medication, he learned the devastating news. The pilot had died on impact. Liam himself had suffered a spinal cord injury that left him unable to move his legs. The doctors were uncertain if he would ever walk again. Marcus arrived within hours of Liam regaining consciousness. His brother's handsome face was drawn with worry as he leaned over the hospital bed. Thank God you're awake, Marcus said. We've been out of our minds. Liam tried to speak, but the tube prevented it. He gestured frantically, miming writing. Marcus understood. You want to know about Elena? Liam nodded desperately. She's been calling, looking for you, Marcus admitted. But the board thought it best not to say anything yet. The company stock is already volatile with rumors about your condition. If word gets out that you might be permanently affected, it could trigger a sell-off. Liam's eyes widened in disbelief. He gestured again for something to write with. Marcus hesitated, then handed him a pen and pad. Liam's hand shook as he scrawled. Tell her. The doctors say your recovery could take years. Liam, if it happens at all. Marcus's voice softened. Do you really want to tie her to that? To watching you struggle? To a life as a caretaker? Liam wrote again, my choice. Hers. Mother agrees with me, Marcus continued, as if Liam hadn't responded. Elena is a lovely woman, but she's young. She has her whole life ahead of her. Would you really ask her to sacrifice that? The words struck at Liam's deepest fear, that Elena would stay with him out of obligation, out of pity, that she would give up her dreams, her chance at a normal family, to care for a man who might never walk again. In his weakened state, with pain clouding his judgment, Liam made a decision that would haunt him for years to come. He wrote, give her space. For now, it was meant to be temporary. Just until he had a clearer prognosis, until he could speak for himself, until he could offer Elena more than uncertainty and burden. But days turned to weeks, and Liam's condition worsened before it improved. Complications led to more surgeries. The breathing tube remained in place for months. By the time Liam could speak again, Elena had disappeared. His family's private investigator reported that she'd left Chicago, left her job, left no forwarding address. It's for the best, his mother insisted during one of her rare hospital visits. You need to focus on your recovery, not on a relationship that was never going to last. Liam had no strength to argue. The physical therapy was grueling, the pain constant. For a year, he fought just to sit up, to feed himself, to perform the basic functions of daily life. The company continued under Marcus's leadership, with carefully controlled public statements about Liam working remotely on special projects. When the American doctors told him he'd reached the limit of his recovery, that he should accept life in a wheelchair, Liam refused to give up. He found a rehabilitation center in Switzerland that specialized in spinal cord injuries, that was pioneering new approaches to nerve regeneration. I'm going, he told his family, and I'm going alone. For 2 years, Liam disappeared from public view. He poured every ounce of his considerable will into his recovery. 8 hours of physical therapy daily, experimental treatments, pain that left him gasping, sweat-soaked, but determined. Slowly, miraculously, sensation returned to his legs. First a tingling, then the ability to move his toes, then his feet. The first time he stood, supported by parallel bars, his therapists hovering nearby, Liam wept. Not just from the achievement, but from the hope it represented. Hope that he might one day stand beside Elena again, if only he could find her. By the time he returned to Chicago, Liam could walk short distances with a cane. His recovery was far from complete, but he had defied every prognosis, every limitation placed upon him. The first thing he did was hire a new investigator to find Elena. She's in Chicago again, the man reported after a week. Moved back about a year ago. She's working as a project manager at Donovan Architects. Liam's heart soared. She was here in the same city, close enough to find, to explain, to beg forgiveness if necessary. What the investigator didn't tell him, couldn't know, was that Elena wasn't alone. That the little boy with her in the park, the child with Liam's eyes, was the piece of the puzzle Liam never knew existed. Until now. Sleep eluded Elena that night. She checked on Leo repeatedly, watching his peaceful slumber, trying to imagine tomorrow's meeting. Would he see the resemblance immediately, this little boy with an old soul's perception? Would Liam's heart break all over again when confronted with the living embodiment of all he'd missed? By morning, dark circles shadowed her eyes, but a strange calm had settled over her. Whatever happened next, the truth was finally in the open. No more secrets, no more half-told stories. Leo was particularly exuberant as they prepared to leave, chattering about the fish in the garden's ponds and the secret paths he loved to explore. "Can we get ice cream after, Mama?" he asked as she buckled him into his car seat. "We'll see," Elena replied, the familiar maternal hedge. "We might have a special visitor today." Leo's eyes widened with interest. "Who? Auntie Maddie?" "No, sweetheart. Someone else." Elena hesitated. "Someone who's been away for a very long time." The botanic garden was quiet on a Tuesday morning. Just a few elderly couples and mothers with strollers wandering the paths. Elena led Leo to the children's garden, her heart pounding as she scanned the area for Liam. He was there, seated on a bench near the entrance, the mahogany cane resting across his knees. He wore casual clothes, jeans and a simple blue sweater that matched his eyes, so different from the impeccable suits she remembered. He looked up as they approached, his face a study in controlled emotion. "Leo," Elena said gently, kneeling beside her son, "there's someone I'd like you to meet." Leo regarded the stranger with curious eyes, suddenly shy as he pressed against his mother's side. Liam set his cane aside and carefully lowered himself to one knee on the path, bringing himself to Leo's level despite the obvious discomfort the position caused him. "Hello, Leo," he said, his voice steady despite the emotion Elena could see him fighting to contain. "My name is Liam." Leo studied him solemnly. "You have a stick," he observed, pointing to the cane. A smile touched Liam's lips. "I do. It helps me walk because my legs don't work as well as they used to." "Did you get an OE?" "A very big OE," Liam confirmed. "But I'm getting better." Leo nodded, accepting this with a child's straightforward logic. Then, with the directness only a 3-year-old could manage, he asked, "Are you my daddy? The one who went far away?" Elena's breath caught. Liam's eyes flew to hers, questioning. She gave a small nod. "Yes," Liam said, his voice thick with emotion. "I am your daddy, and I've been trying very hard to come back to you and your mama." Leo considered this, his small brow furrowed in concentration. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a slightly battered toy car, his constant companion. "This is Lightning," he announced, holding it out to Liam. "He's very fast. You can hold him if you want." Liam accepted the toy with trembling hands, as if he'd been offered the crown jewels. "Thank you," he said. "I'll be very careful with him." Leo beamed, then turned to Elena. "Mama, can Daddy come see the fish with us? I want to show him the orange ones." Elena looked at Liam, still kneeling on the path, holding their son's toy as if it were the most precious thing he'd ever touched. The man who had once commanded boardrooms and built skyscrapers, humbled by a child's simple acceptance. "Yes," she said softly. "Daddy can come with us. My queens." Tag someone who showed incredible strength when life threw them an unexpected challenge. And if you're finding strength in this journey, hit that subscribe button to join our storytelling family. Liam rose slowly, leaning heavily on his cane. Leo watched with interest, then slipped his small hand into Liam's free one. "I can help you walk," he offered. "Mama says I'm very strong." "She's right," Liam said, his voice breaking. "You are very strong, just like your mother." They moved slowly through the garden, Leo chattering about fish and frogs and his favorite books, Liam drinking in every word as if committing them to memory. Elena walked beside them, watching the identical profiles. One small and eager, one weathered by pain but alight with wonder. At the koi pond, Leo pressed his face against the railing, pointing out his favorite fish. Liam stood behind him, one hand steadying himself on the rail, the other protectively near Leo's back. "He's amazing, Elena," Liam said quietly. "You've done an incredible job with him." "He makes it easy," she replied. "He has a good heart, like his mother." Liam's gaze held hers. "I know I have no right to ask for anything more than this moment, but I've lost 3 years of his life, of your lives. I want to be part of whatever comes next, if you'll allow it." Before Elena could respond, Leo tugged at Liam's hand. "Can you come to my house? I want to show you my dinosaurs. I have 17. Liam looked to Elena, the question clear in his eyes. "Maybe another day, Leo," she said gently. "Liam, Daddy, probably has other things to do today." "I don't," Liam said quickly. "Nothing more important than this." The simple sincerity in his voice weakened Elena's resolve. "All right," she conceded. "You can come over for lunch. But Leo, remember that Daddy might get tired more easily because of his OE. He might need to rest." "I can show him my books," Leo decided. "That's sitting down." Liam's smile was radiant. "I'd love to see your books." The drive back to Elena's townhouse was surreal. Liam following in his car, Leo chattering excitedly from his car seat. Elena's mind raced with questions, with doubts, with the strange sense that her carefully constructed life was shifting beneath her feet. At home, Leo immediately took charge, pulling Liam from room to room on a grand tour, proudly showing off his toys, his books, the height chart on the wall where Elena marked his growth. "And this is where I sleep," he announced, leading Liam into his bedroom with its dinosaur-themed bedding and star-patterned ceiling. "Mama painted the stars. They glow in the dark. It's wonderful," Liam said, taking in every detail of his son's life with hungry eyes. Elena watched from the doorway, her heart constricting at the sight of them together. Liam sitting on the edge of Leo's bed, examining each treasured toy with appropriate reverence. Leo explaining their names and special powers with solemn importance. This was what should have been. What could have been if fate hadn't intervened. When Leo finally ran out of things to show, Elena suggested lunch. "Why don't you wash your hands, sweetheart? I'll make sandwiches." In the kitchen, Liam insisted on helping despite his limited mobility. "I'm not completely useless," he said with a self-deprecating smile. "I can still slice tomatoes." They worked side by side, the domestic simplicity of the task at odds with the complexity of their situation. "I can see you're still getting used to it," Elena observed, watching him adjust his stance to maintain balance while cutting. "The cane. It's better than it was," Liam replied. 6 months ago I needed 2. A year before that, a wheelchair." He glanced toward the living room where Leo was arranging his dinosaurs in a complex formation on the coffee table. "The doctors say I might eventually graduate to just a walking stick for longer distances." "Small victories." Elena handed him a plate. "It's not small, Liam. It's remarkable." Their fingers brushed, and for a moment, they were frozen in the contact, years of separation compressed into a single touch. "Mama! Daddy! Look at my dinosaurs!" Leo's voice broke the spell. Lunch was a surprisingly easy affair, with Leo dominating the conversation, asking Liam dozens of questions about where he'd been, why he needed a cane, if he liked dinosaurs too. "Did you know T-Rex has the strongest bite ever?" Leo asked between bites of his sandwich. "I didn't," Liam replied seriously. "That's very impressive. Stronger than crocodiles even," Leo nodded sagely. "When I grow up, I'm going to find dinosaur bones." "A paleontologist," Liam smiled. "That's an excellent career choice." Elena watched their interaction, marveling at Liam's natural ease with their son. There was no awkwardness, no hesitation. Just a father getting to know his child, making up for lost time with every attentive question, every shared smile. After lunch, Leo's energy finally began to wane. "I think someone needs a nap," Elena said, noting his drooping eyelids. "No nap," Leo protested, even as he yawned widely. "I want to stay with Daddy." "I'll come back," Liam promised. "If that's okay with your mom." Leo looked to Elena, his expression pleading. "Can Daddy come back tomorrow? Please." Elena hesitated, caught between her son's obvious joy and her own lingering uncertainty. "We'll see, sweetheart. Daddy might be busy." "I'm not," Liam said quietly. "Not for him. Not for you." Once Leo was settled for his nap, Elena and Liam sat in the living room, the weight of everything still unsaid hanging between them. "He's incredible," Liam said, breaking the silence. "So bright. So open-hearted." "He gets that from you," Elena admitted. "That curiosity, that focus. Sometimes it's like looking at a miniature version of you." Liam's eyes glistened. "I've missed so much, Elena." His first smile, his first steps, his first words. "I'll never get those moments back." "No," she agreed softly. "But there are so many firsts still to come." His first day of school, his first lost tooth, his first bike ride. Hope bloomed in Liam's expression. "Are you saying?" "I'm saying he deserves to know his father," Elena said carefully. "And you deserve to know your son." "And us?" Liam asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Is there any chance for us, Elena? Or have I lost that forever? Elena looked at the man before her, changed by suffering, humbled by circumstance, yet still essentially Liam. The man she'd never stopped loving, even when she thought he'd abandoned her. I don't know, she answered honestly. 3 years is a long time, Liam. We're different people now. I'm a mother. You're still in love with you, he finished simply. That hasn't changed. Not through the accident, not through rehabilitation, not through believing I might never see you again. If anything, it's stronger now. Elena felt tears threatening. I need time to process all of this, to figure out what it means for Leo, for me. I understand, Liam said. I'll wait, Elena, however long it takes. I've gotten good at waiting. As he prepared to leave, leaning more heavily on his cane than he had earlier, a sign of fatigue he couldn't quite hide, Liam paused at the door. There's something else you should know, he said. I'm not running Westbrook Developments anymore. Marcus is CEO now. Elena's surprise must have shown on her face. The accident changed my priorities, Liam explained. I'm still on the board, but I've started a foundation instead, funding research for spinal cord injuries, making buildings more accessible, using what happened to me to help others. That sounds like the Liam I knew, Elena said softly. The one who wanted to build something that matters. His smile was tinged with sadness. I'm trying to be worthy of a second chance, Elena. With Leo. With you. If that's even possible. After he left, Elena stood at the window, watching him make his slow, careful way to his car. 3 years ago, she would have run after him, would have fallen back into his arms without question. Now caution tempered her heart. She had Leo to consider, and the fragile life she'd built for them both. Yet as she turned back to the quiet apartment, to the dinosaurs still arranged on the coffee table, to the toy car Liam had carefully returned to its place of honor on Leo's shelf, Elena felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. Hope. The weeks that followed established a tentative new normal. Liam visited regularly, gradually becoming a fixture in Leo's life. They developed their own rituals. Saturday mornings at the museum, Sunday afternoons with books spread across Elena's living room floor. Leo blossomed under his father's attention, his natural confidence growing as he basked in the love of both parents. Elena watched their relationship develop with a mixture of joy and trepidation. Joy at seeing her son so happy, at witnessing the bond that formed so naturally between them. Trepidation at the growing realization that her own feelings for Liam were resurfacing, stronger and more complex than before. He's different, Madeline observed over coffee one morning, after Leo had proudly introduced his father to his Auntie Maddie the previous weekend. Softer somehow. Less invincible, Elena suggested. Exactly. The Liam Westbrook I remember was untouchable. This man. Madeline shook her head. He looks at you and Leo like you're his whole world. We're not together, Elena reminded her friend. We're co-parenting. That's all. Madeline's knowing smile said she didn't believe that for a second. Whatever you say, honey. Just remember, sometimes the universe has a way of bringing people back together for a reason. The universe, it seemed, had other plans entirely. 3 months after Liam's reappearance in their lives, Leo woke one morning burning with fever, his small body racked with chills. Mama, he whimpered. My head hurts. The pediatrician diagnosed a severe ear infection that had spread, recommending immediate hospitalization for 4 antibiotics. Elena called Liam from the emergency room, her voice shaking. I'm on my way, he said without hesitation. He arrived within 20 minutes, moving faster than Elena had ever seen him, his cane tapping an urgent rhythm on the hospital floor. The sight of Leo, small and pale against the white sheets, stopped him in his tracks. Hey, buddy, he said softly, crossing to the bed. Not feeling so good, huh? Leo's eyes brightened slightly at the sight of his father. Daddy, he whispered. My ear is really owy. I know, champ. Liam sat carefully on the edge of the bed, taking Leo's small hand in his. But these doctors are going to make it better. And Mama and I are going to stay right here with you. Elena watched from the doorway as Liam leaned close, whispering something that made Leo smile despite his pain. In that moment, she saw what she'd been trying to deny for months. They were already a family. Not the one she'd imagined years ago, but perhaps something stronger, forged through separation and reunion, through pain and healing. The next 48 hours became a blur of doctors, nurses, medication schedules, and fitful sleep in uncomfortable hospital chairs. Liam never left, despite the obvious toll it took on his still recovering body. He charmed the nurses into bringing extra pillows, read endless stories when Leo couldn't sleep, and held Elena's hand during the worst moments when their son's fever spiked dangerously high. On the third day, the fever finally broke. Leo slept peacefully, his color returning, the worst behind him. Elena and Liam sat side by side in the small room, exhaustion etched on both their faces. "You should go home," Elena said. "Get some real rest. Your back must be hurting you." Liam shook his head. "I'm not leaving him. Or you." The simple declaration hung in the air between them. Elena studied his profile, the determined set of his jaw, the new lines around his eyes that spoke of pain endured, the silver threading through his dark hair. "You never would have left us, would you?" she asked quietly. "If you'd had a choice." Liam turned to her, his gaze steady. "Never. You and Leo, you're everything to me, Elena. Everything I fought to come back to, even when I didn't know he existed." Something broke open inside her, the last wall of protection she'd built around her heart. Without a word, Elena leaned forward and kissed him. A gentle press of lips that carried 3 years of longing, of questions finally answered. When they parted, Liam's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "I don't deserve this second chance," he whispered. "Yes, you do," Elena replied. "We all do. If you've ever had to choose between your heart and your head, like if this resonates with you, what would you do in Elena's position?" Leo's recovery marked a turning point. As he regained his strength, the tentative boundaries Elena had maintained began to dissolve. Liam stayed over some nights, first on the couch, then eventually sharing her bed. They moved cautiously, relearning each other, discovering the ways they'd both changed and the essential truths that remained the same. "I want us to be a real family," Liam said one evening as they watched Leo playing in the backyard of Elena's townhouse. "Not just for Leo's sake, but for ours." Elena leaned against his shoulder. "We already are a family, Liam. Different than we might have planned, but real nonetheless." "That's not what I mean." He shifted to face her. "I want to wake up beside you every morning. I want Leo to grow up with both his parents under one roof. I want to build a life together, the one we should have had all along." The earnestness in his voice touched something deep within Elena. "Are you asking me to move in with you?" "I'm asking for more than that," Liam admitted. "But I know we need time. I know trust doesn't rebuild overnight." Elena considered his words. The past months had shown her a Liam she'd never fully known before. Vulnerable yet stronger for it. Humbled by circumstance yet more determined than ever. The man who had once commanded an empire now found his greatest joy in making their son laugh. In the simple pleasures of family life. "One step at a time," she said finally. "But yes, I want that too." The next challenge came unexpectedly, in the form of a formal dinner invitation from Vivian Westbrook. Liam's mother had been notably absent since his return to Elena's life, maintaining a distance that spoke volumes about her feelings regarding the reunion. "We don't have to go," Liam said when the engraved card arrived. "Mother can wait until she's ready to accept you and Leo properly." But Elena shook her head. "No more hiding, Liam. No more secrets. If we're going to be a family, we need to face everything together, including your mother." The Westbrook family estate sprawled across several acres in the city's most exclusive suburb, its manicured gardens and imposing facade a testament to old money and careful preservation. Elena had visited only a handful of times during their previous relationship, always feeling slightly out of place among the antiques and ancestral portraits. Now, with Leo's hand in hers and Liam at her side, she approached the front door with newfound confidence. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about their son's place in the world, about the family they were building together. Vivian Westbrook greeted them in the formal drawing room, her elegant appearance unchanged by the passing years. Marcus stood beside her, his smile not quite reaching his eyes as he embraced his brother. "Elena," Vivian acknowledged with a cool nod. "And this must be Leo." Leo, suddenly shy, pressed against Elena's leg. "Hello," he managed in a small voice. "He has the Westbrook eyes," Vivian observed, studying him with clinical interest. "There's no mistaking his parentage." "Mother," Liam warned quietly. Dinner proceeded with strained politeness, the conversation carefully navigating around the 3 years of separation. Leo, sensing the tension, remained unusually quiet, answering questions about school and his interests with uncharacteristic brevity. It was during dessert that Marcus finally broached the subject they'd all been avoiding. "The board is asking questions, Liam, about your plans, about the future of the company." "My plans haven't changed," Liam replied evenly. "You're doing an excellent job as CEO. I'm happy with my foundation work. But surely now that you're recovered," Vivian interjected, her gaze flicking to the cane resting against Liam's chair, "you'll want to resume your rightful position." "My recovery is ongoing, Mother, and my priorities have shifted." Liam's hand found Elena's under the table. "My family comes first now." "Family?" Vivian repeated, the word laden with unspoken judgment. "Yes, well, speaking of family, there are certain arrangements that should be discussed. For the boy's future." "Leo," Elena corrected firmly. "His name is Leo." "Of course," Vivian conceded with a thin smile. "For Leo's future. The Westbrook name carries certain responsibilities, certain expectations." Liam's posture stiffened. "Leo will grow up knowing who he is and where he comes from. But Elena and I will decide what's best for him. Not the board, not the family legacy." "You've always been idealistic, Liam," Marcus said with a patronizing smile. "But reality has a way of asserting itself. The company needs strong leadership. The Westbrook name needs protection." "Protection from what, exactly?" Elena asked, her patience wearing thin. Marcus's gaze shifted to her. "From complications. From distractions. Like me," Elena challenged. "Or like the truth about why Liam disappeared for 3 years." A heavy silence fell over the table. Leo looked up from his dessert, sensing the shift in atmosphere. "Mama," he whispered, "can we go home now?" "Soon, sweetheart," Elena assured him, then turned back to the Westbrooks. "You kept us apart. You let me believe Liam had abandoned me, abandoned our child. And now you sit here talking about family legacy." "We did what was necessary," Vivian said coldly. "Liam was in no condition to make decisions. The company was at risk. The family name." "The family name," Liam interrupted, his voice quiet but firm. "My family is sitting right here, Mother. Elena and Leo. They are my priority, my legacy, my future. If you can't accept that, then we have nothing more to discuss." He stood carefully, leaning on his cane. "Elena, Leo, I think it's time we went home." As they drove away from the estate, Leo already dozing in his car seat, Elena reached for Liam's hand. "Are you okay?" Liam's expression was thoughtful. "You know, for years I tried to live up to the Westbrook name, to be worthy of the legacy. It took losing everything to realize what actually matters." He squeezed her fingers. "I won't let them come between us again, Elena. Not ever." "They won't," she promised. "We're stronger now. All of us." The confrontation with the Westbrooks marked a final turning point. With the past fully exposed, with all secrets laid bare, Elena and Liam could finally look toward the future without shadows hanging over them. Spring arrived, bringing with it Leo's 4th birthday. They celebrated at the Botanic Garden, the place where their family had truly begun to heal, with a small gathering of friends. Madeline was there, taking far too many photos and spoiling Leo shamelessly. Even Marcus came without Vivian, bringing an extravagant gift and an awkward but seemingly genuine attempt at reconciliation. As the party wound down, Liam asked Elena to walk with him to the Japanese garden, leaving Leo happily occupied with Madeline and his new toys. "I have something to show you," he said, leading her along the winding path to a secluded corner where cherry trees bloomed in delicate pink profusion. Elena gasped softly. In the center of the small clearing stood the painting, the lakeside scene from the charity auction where they'd first met, now mounted on an elegant easel. "You kept it?" she whispered, moving closer to the familiar landscape that had started everything. "It was the one thing I insisted on having in my hospital room," Liam said, coming to stand beside her. "When I couldn't speak, couldn't move, it reminded me of you, of what I was fighting to return to." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. Not new, she realized, but worn at the edges, as if it had been carried for a very long time. "I've been carrying this for 4 years, Liam said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "I had it with me the night of the accident. The paramedics found it in my pocket when they cut away my clothes." He opened the box to reveal a platinum band with an emerald-cut diamond, exactly as he described that night at the restaurant. "I was going to ask you at the lake house. I had it all planned. Dinner on the dock, the sunset over the water." Liam carefully lowered himself to one knee, balancing with his cane. "Life didn't go according to plan, Elena, but maybe that's the point. What we have now, it's been tested by fire, by time, by pain. And it's still here, stronger than before." He held the ring up to her, the diamond catching the dappled sunlight filtering through the cherry blossoms. "Elena Blackwood, will you marry me? Will you build a life with me? Not the one we might have had, but something new, something even more beautiful because we know exactly how precious it is." Tears blurred Elena's vision as she looked down at this man, once so powerful, now humbled but somehow stronger. Once perfect in her eyes, now beautifully, humanly flawed. "Yes," she said, her voice breaking on the word. "Yes, Liam, I will." As he slipped the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit, as if time had been waiting for this moment. Leo's voice called out from the path. "Mama! Daddy!" He ran toward them, stopping short when he saw Liam kneeling. "Why are you on the ground, Daddy? Did you fall?" Liam laughed, holding out his arm to their son. "No, buddy. I was asking Mama a very important question." Leo approached curiously. "What question?" "I asked her to marry me," Liam explained. "To be my wife." Leo's brow furrowed in concentration. "But she's already your family. And I'm your family too." "That's right," Elena said, kneeling beside Liam so they were both at Leo's level. "But getting married is a special promise. It means we'll all live together, always." Leo's face brightened. "In the same house? Every day?" "Every day," Liam confirmed. "What do you think about that?" Leo considered this momentous question with all the seriousness a 4-year-old could muster. Then he nodded decisively. "I think yes. And can I have a dog?" Elena and Liam exchanged glances, laughter bubbling up between them. The pure, unrestrained joy of a family finding its way home. "We'll talk about the dog," Elena promised, pulling Leo into their embrace. They were married 3 months later in the garden of the lake house, the place where their story should have begun, now transformed into the setting for their new beginning. The ceremony was small, intimate, with only their closest friends in attendance. Madeline stood as Elena's maid of honor, while Marcus, making tentative steps toward redemption, served as Liam's best man. Leo, resplendent in a miniature suit that matched his father's, carried the rings on a small pillow, his face a study in concentration as he navigated the grassy aisle. Vivian Westbrook did not attend. Her absence was a wound still healing, a relationship that would take more time to mend, if it ever could. But her shadow no longer darkened their joy. As they exchanged vows beneath an arbor of white roses, Elena looked into Liam's eyes and saw their entire journey reflected there. The love they'd found, lost, and reclaimed. The pain that had shaped them. The joy that had sustained them. "I promise to walk beside you," Liam vowed, his voice carrying across the still lake water, "through whatever life brings us, to cherish every moment, knowing how precious and fragile time can be. To love you and Leo with everything I am, everything I have, for all the days of my life." Elena's voice trembled as she responded, "I promise to trust in our love, even when the path ahead seems uncertain. To remember that the strongest bonds are those that have been tested. To build our future together, day by day, moment by moment, with patience and faith and endless love." As they sealed their vows with a kiss, Leo tugged at Liam's jacket. "Are we a forever family now?" he whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear. Liam lifted his son into his arms, his strength having returned enough for this moment he dreamed of through countless hours of rehabilitation. "Yes, buddy," he said, including Elena in their embrace. "We're a forever family now." The reception that followed was filled with laughter, with dancing, Liam moving carefully but joyfully with his new wife, then with Leo standing on his shoes, with toasts to second chances and unexpected blessings. As the evening drew to a close, Elena found herself standing at the edge of the dock, looking out over the lake that had featured in the painting that brought them together. Liam joined her, his cane tapping softly on the wooden planks. "Happy?" he asked, slipping his arm around her waist. "More than I ever thought possible," she admitted, leaning into his embrace. "If someone had told me a year ago that we'd be here, like this." "Life has a way of surprising us," Liam said, "sometimes painfully, sometimes beautifully." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the moon's reflection ripple across the water. Behind them, the sounds of the party continued. Leo's laughter as Madeline chased him across the lawn, music drifting from the speakers, the murmur of conversations and clinking glasses. "I used to think happiness was about having everything under control," Elena said thoughtfully, "about knowing exactly where my life was headed. And now?" Liam asked. She turned in his arms, looking up at the face she'd once thought lost to her forever. "Now I know it's about embracing the unexpected, about finding strength in the broken places, about loving deeply enough to risk everything." Liam's kiss was tender, a promise of all the days to come. "I love you, Elena Westbrook. I love you too," she whispered against his lips. "Always have, always will." As they walked back toward the celebration, toward their son, toward their future, Elena felt a sense of completion she'd never known before. Their story hadn't unfolded as either of them had planned. The path had been longer, harder, filled with detours neither could have anticipated. But perhaps that was the point. Perhaps the most beautiful love stories weren't the perfect, untroubled ones, but those that had weathered storms, endured separation, faced down pain and doubt, and emerged stronger on the other side. Their love had been tested by time, by circumstance, by misunderstanding. And in that testing, it had been transformed into something unbreakable. A bond that would sustain them through whatever challenges lay ahead. A foundation upon which they could build their forever family. My beautiful sisters, if this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear that sometimes. The most beautiful love stories include chapters of heartbreak and redemption. And don't forget to subscribe for more timeless love tales with Mr. Harrison.